Bailey's got us going. Morning. You good? Good morning. There you go. Okay, welcome to the Monday morning meeting of the BOCC. Looks like we'll just go down the list. HR.
Good morning, Jessica Warren, Human Resources. First request I have comes from the prosecuting attorney's office. His chief criminal deputy is retiring in December, and he is requesting to start the replacement chief criminal deputy at step 4 effective December 16th.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And the next item I have is a request to fill from building and planning. Their admin assistant 2 signed a posting in another office, so she'll be leaving and they would like to fill her position. Admin assistant 2.
Assistant 2.
I'm good with it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. And then I have a couple items for executive sessions at the end, performance of a public employee, and then collective bargaining.
Okay. We will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Risk management's not here today. Budget.
Good morning, Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director. Couple things. I'm working with IT on enhancements to, we have an existing form in Laserfish called new personnel and salary changes. And we were only using that during the budget process. And so Human Resources and I have talked, and we'd like to enhance that and use it all during the year for documenting and having a repository and a routing of those items. So we're working on that and should have that sometime next year, first quarter.
So does,
Yes.
is that going to replace that other document processing? Went by some kind of initial, it was subject to some kind of an inter-office review. Personnel. So
Yeah, well, it won't do away with pause forms because those are for PeopleSoft. This just gives us a better way of tracking when an item is approved by the commissioners, when it's effective, things like that. And it will assist us in keeping our salary, direct labor sheets updated as well. And it was something that already existed, so we're just trying to enhance it and utilize it in a better fashion.
I just had the impression that that pause system was kind of convoluted, multi-stepped, and but apparently not. Okay.
So,
Do you have a
so,
question?
I'm on unclear, excuse me, I'm unclear as to what these changes are. If you wouldn't mind helping me out on that?
On the form, this personnel changes.
Yeah, you said you currently have a form that you use at certain times of the year.
Budget, during budget.
time. And then it is no longer used and you're trying to enhance that.
So that we can use it all during the year, and we can track and have better records of when items have been approved and when for changes on
So-
personnel.
So as of right now, how would the tracking help us?
As of right now, how would it help me?
Well,
Help.
you're saying it would help you track things, and so what's the value of tracking?
So we keep track of the items in our, for the budget to look at direct labor cost and to keep those all during the year as updated as possible. And so this would help us with just another tool to do that and to be more concise. And sometimes we have questions that some people ask, something got approved, but it takes a little while before it happens. And so we would be able to go back to the repository and see when that item was actually approved and exactly what was approved to make sure that it goes in right.
I'd like to chat with you about this
Okay.
offline.
Okay, sure, sure. Any other questions about that? We're also working on levy information. We've been collecting information from special districts. And so we have a public hearing set for next week on all of those special district levies. And we've been working to get those all in. So, and we will also be presenting next week the general fund as well as the road fund levy for a public hearing. And so I'm still proceeding with, and I just want to make sure I'm still proceeding with not taking the 1%, the allowed 1%.
I think you were going to give us both figures so we could see
Yes,
the impacts.
yeah, so I can do that. I forgot to bring it. It's
Uh,
approximately $200,000 annually.
So I think our question is, without the 1%, what does the budget look like? How
Yeah.
bad is it? And we can then mentally at least add the 200K or so.
If you'd like, in tomorrow's workshop, I'm I'm also preparing fees. And so I'll bring that tomorrow during that workshop, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I can get everything put
Okay.
together.
Yeah.
And also, I have for you, I don't know if y'all get this. Do you get the state's economic and revenue update their monthly updates? I'm
I
gonna give you,
haven't seen it.
I'm gonna give you an executive summary here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's quite a bit of good news in this. One, they're saying the U.S. Employment increased 150,000 jobs in November. And then U.S. And I'm sure you've seen this, but the consumer prices were unchanged compared to September for the month of October, and for the year, they're up 3.2% over the year. And then very happy about this one. Oil prices fell $7 a barrel last month. And but on the flip side, it says that Washington job growth is trending down and that Washington housing construction is slowing, which I think we've already been seeing anyway. So that's kind of their executive summary.
I never know how to take these job reports because to my knowledge, every month they've given us a figure, then they've had to adjust it down. So they've never been true numbers. So I never know how to take them, but.
Yeah.
but,
And that's a nation, that's a national, and
yeah,
I prefer to look at, they didn't spell out the local,
yeah,
so.
And it's hard to know what to do with the consumer prices. Anybody that believes we're only 3.2% more expensive this year than last year probably hasn't been shopping lately.
Mhm.
So it's a problem we always have here is we get a lot of data that is basically useless.
I'm a believer in trust but verify.
Yeah. At this point, that was a good thing when Ronald Reagan was president. We have slid down a moral slope since then. So I'm not sure you can start out with trust.
Any other
so-
questions for me?
So particularly difficult to follow is the next to last paragraph, the last complete paragraph, when it talks about layoffs. Totaling a certain amount, which is a 22% increase, but it's 164% increase over last. What's going on? It's pretty hard to
Yeah.
calculate that. Scott Bailey, I understand, is the one who has specialized in the local predictions for going by county, and that'll be coming out. I
You know-
would say this week, but this week I have no idea.
Yeah,
what's coming out.
typically it comes out in November, right?
Well, they come out each month, yeah,
Okay.
and look for that one, because that gets into Cowlitz and Clark and Wahkiakum counties tracking. But we've also, the idea that construction is down, that's been reflected by our own building and planning. The number of permits have slowed down, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I think we've seen a decrease in the fees too, the dock fees, which should indicate that
Yeah.
also.
And they
Yeah.
seem, the dock fees, when I reported last month, that's the auditor tracks all of that and does a very good job on that. And they look like they've slowed down, but it looks like they're staying stable, as far as dollar amount, but. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's 1,001 questions in here that I'll pretend I didn't read this.
Okay. I didn't prepare it. I just collected it from the state and thought it might be a good tidbit to look at. Like I said, you have to look at local items,
I
and they don't have anything local on this report for us.
I will ask you one sort of mechanical question. When it says 3.2% over year, is that September to the September, or are they saying?
They typically do it September they do it a 12-month period.
I didn't ask that properly. So sometimes you say, last September, I went to the park 3 times. This September, I've gone to the park 8 times. So I've gone 8/3 as many times this year as I did last September, this September's last September. This 3.2% is taking the prices in September, and then watching the prices do this, and then I'm here this September, and I just say, that's only 3.2% above this September. That's what it's trying to say.
Yeah.
It's not trying to do any integration
Right.
in the middle there. Then I
That's what-
really don't
that-
believe the 3.2%.
It's just a real narrow snapshot. It does,
Mhm.
yeah.
If there's any use at all, it's in the trends
Yeah.
in order to predict, and
Right.
it doesn't look like we're falling off the precipice in terms of a turn down.
A lot will depend on what the BRICS do and the repatriation of the several trillion that are overseas.
Any other questions for me? You'll see me tomorrow in a workshop.
Okay. Thank you. Correction.
Tomorrow, that's going to be a pretty long workshop in the afternoon, right?
But I hear we're just here today and tomorrow. We're gone Wednesday.
Oh, yeah, no,
Thursday,
not,
Friday.
it's just I
Yeah.
have to cancel the dinner date.
Yeah.
Good morning, Marin Fox, Director of Corrections.
I'll provide a brief update on our population this morning. We were at 193, which is lower than we've been, with
Yeah.
33 bookings over the weekend, also lower than we've been. But it is typical this time of year to see a bit of a decline in population as well as bookings.
Something about family get-togethers?
The weather, I'm not sure. And I pulled some numbers from October of 22 to compare to October of 23 as far as arrests go. DUIs were up for that month, 75 and 22 versus 96 and 23. With the drug law changes, there were 9 arrests for drug-related charges in 22 in the month of October, and in 23, that was 114. So that's a significant difference with the misdemeanor drug possession.
Could you repeat that? Those numbers seem
In
astounding.
October of 2022, there were 9 arrests for drug-related offenses. So in 22, that would have to be like delivery. So something, not just possession. So with the change in the possession laws in 2023, we had 114 booked for drug-related offenses in October.
And when you say drugs, that's drugs and alcohol.
No, drugs.
Drugs.
And the theft, third, shoplifting is comparable, 109 in 22 versus 99 in 23.
How do they test the drugs? Like a breathalyzer is sort of obvious, but with drugs, they take a blood sample on you?
Those would be captured under the DUIs, but yes, they have to get a drug sample. If the person refuses the drug sample, they have to get a warrant from a judge and take them to the hospital for a blood draw.
So that's just a lot of extra effort, a lot of extra expense too.
Sure.
Well, you have to have the proof. You have to have the evidence.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And do you have a breakdown on what kind of drugs?
No, especially with the drug possession ones. I mean, that are the DUIs that are related to drug use. That return comes back much later than they typically aren't still going to be in jail when the results come back from the lab.
Yeah, I'm just thinking
It-
it's a lot harder to detect if you're driving impaired with marijuana or opioids.
Sure.
And
It's much less common. Most DUIs are alcohol related.
but you said these 114 are all,
Well, that's 114 of drug related, like possession or delivery or
oh,
not DUI related.
oh. Thank you.
Yes. And some good news, we had 2 murders in October of 22 and 0 this year. So that's better. Camping, unlawful camping citations have gone up as well. We had 4 in October of 22 and 23 for October and 23. So at the end of the year, I'll do a full review of all of 22 versus all of 23. Any questions?
I do have a question for you, and it's just for information for myself, because I saw a lot of press when in Spokane last week about state of Washington. They did a sting on pedophiles and arrested over 300, and there was like 15 from Calais County. Does that put any pressure on our system? I mean, do they come through us, or do they just pick them up and all?
No, we received all those bookings. I think
Okay.
maybe it was 13 over a weekend a few weeks ago. It was coordinated, I believe, by a federal, maybe FBI, with local law enforcement assisting.
So do they transfer those out to wherever they're doing, or we just hang on to them?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think the
okay.
bail was set on most of those around 100 to 150,000. Some bailed out, some are still in custody.
Okay.
Right. Anything else? All right. Thank you.
IT.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kim Hort, IT Director. Good morning. So an update on the phone system. We are excitedly removing the legacy system. So my team kind of feels like a victorious Viking pulling out that legacy hardware. So they're pretty excited about that. We are still moving over our analog phones. So we've completed changes over at the jail and then kind of working out to all the other departments. Last week, I provided Commissioner Mortensen with the request or inquiry on internet service provider costs. Did you have any questions to that? Okay. And on the agenda for next week is the IT HVAC replacement. So back in July, we had a catastrophic outage to where our HVAC system failed and it needs to be replaced. Facilities has gone out to bid and we are taking the lowest bidder. And so that will be presented to you next week. Other than that, we're just kind of working on projects. I wanted to acknowledge David Feldman. He did the auditor's office Eagle recorder system. He migrated the database from Oracle over to our SQL database, which is high availability and easier to maintain because it's all on one platform. So a good shout out for that. Other than that, I don't have anything to report unless you have questions.
Is there a future in which there is no Oracle here?
There may be.
That's too difficult though, isn't it? Yeah.
Except isn't people a
PeopleSoft,
spin-off of
mhm.
Oracle? That's
It
an
is.
Oracle system.
Yes.
I think we're stuck with people system.
PeopleSoft.
Run that by again?
The people software,
Oh, it sits on Oracle.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I think we,
And then until we figure out what we want to do with PeopleSoft, but I shouldn't say it that way. I don't like PeopleSoft, but it's there. And then at some point, maybe 20 years from now, we won't be on PeopleSoft.
obviously an issue for a different commission.
No, I'm planning to hang around till then.
Good goal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Miscellaneous. I know
Oh,
you had some
yeah.
comments or questions on the,
So I wondered, the WASAC was called the annual legislative meeting or
The leadership conference. It's called the Leadership Conference. I
right.
think that's the, yeah.
And in one form or another, we all three attended that, but because we can't really talk about it, I wanted to ask them about a simple mechanical question and then a much more complex question. The simple mechanical question, at the end, just before the break, there was a motion to allow 3 or 4 counties to come in with dues that are far less than they currently were supposed to pay. Notice how I carefully said that. Did that pass?
No, there were no changes approved on that portion of the bylaws. It was an overall update of the bylaws. Which
Right,
included a recalculation of the amount, particularly,
but then Michael Largent put out put a motion saying he wanted to cut them back, and then we broke. That did not pass.
didn't pass it. No.
Okay, good. So that's a mechanical question. The more complicated question starts out with, I heard many people say, well, I heard a few people say, it's very important for the counties to unite in WASAC to present one picture to the state. And I'm scratching my head and thinking, isn't that what the governor is? Isn't that what we do through the legislature? And then that gets me to thinking, how can we, when we suffer badly from Snohomish, King, and Pierce County controlling the legislature, essentially, why would we let them control Wasack? And that was stopped, but it violates the speaking as one voice for all the counties. And then there's an ongoing threat from Snohomish and King and Pierce and maybe a couple others that if they don't get what they want, they'll leave Wasack. And I'm thinking, what's so bad about that? We've got about 30 counties who have almost the same common interest. Why wouldn't we let Wasack go and us form a different Wasack? You see where I'm going? How, Kathy, how much do we pay Wasack in dues?
It's over 20,000 a year. But I think this is, I'm a little confused because there's actually two that seem to be very similar. And one's Waco. Am I saying that right? Wasack and then Waco?
Yeah.
WACO are the other elected officials, statewide organizations. WASAC are the county commissioners,
Okay,
county executives, county councils, that legislative branch.
Okay.
So auditor, assessor, and that whole group, they have their own. Sheriffs have their own.
okay.
Coroners
That's
have-
what the difference
The
is.
coroners have the most interesting acronym. It's the Washington Association of Medical Examiners and Coroners. No, coroners and medical examiners. And if you pronounce it, it sounds like whack me.
Oh.
They do have a sense of humor, but
I don't have
So I
the
don't
sheet
know.
with me, but we're over 20,000, probably
there's several-
closing on 30.
Yeah, because there's several different assessments. There's
Right.
the main one that's a
Right.
little over 20. And then there's several other assessments in addition to that one.
One, because I think we're in forest or timber, and then there's
Yes.
another for something, so
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
probably approaching over $30,000. 30,000.
it's, yeah. I'd probably say a
so
little under
here's
30.
one of the struggles that we have, Arn. In order to have the services provided by WASAC, it's a matter of personnel to be there to work with the legislature. That requires money. Okay, so under the proposed change that the bylaws committee came up with, our dues would have had to go up because King County's was going to go down.
Yeah, I
So the
completely
challenge
understand that.
is at some point, we can't have an organization because there's 18 counties that are under 20,000 people. And they just don't have there's no way that they can have a full-time staff working on behalf of the counties. And so that's kind of the struggle. And as the bigger counties lower their assessments, because they still get the same number of votes as other counties.
Yeah,
If they leave, we have to go through the same thing. We are I think we're the 10th largest county. So we saw a 16% increase had the change been approved. So
yeah, I
that's-
totally appreciate that. I've got two problems. One specifically with that, which is I've never been fond of saying, oh, those guys got the money, we'll take it from them. And that's just a fundamental that I just can't get behind. If we're not serving King County's needs, we shouldn't be charging them. And that's because there's such a difference between those counties and the rest of us. Even though we're 10th largest, I feel very comfortable with dealing with Wacayucum or Skamania and those counties, we're kind of on the same page. Those other ones are like a different world. And I don't like to cross those lines where we tax them for our purposes. The other thing is, I don't know what we get out of WASAC per se, and I don't look at the details. I talk to the legislatures, and I've never had anybody come up to me and say, well, WASAC said, or, well, we were going to zig, but then WASAC told us to zag. I just haven't heard anything like that at all. So it may be that I just haven't heard and it exists, but having it's the whole thing seems weird to me.
You know,
I don't mind the money if it's 30,000 with apologies to the taxpayer. It's a big moral, ethical, and practical issue above the money.
yeah. Well, you know, it was a little ironic sitting and listening to that because I come through industry that is a cooperative, and we had the same struggles where the big boys, your Boeings and your huge credit unions had different needs, and they were helping support the others. And I don't know where that's at these days, but they had to work through those same type of issues.
One of the interesting things that didn't come out, I don't know if you caught it, but the big counties definitely said they will continue to support their share of the lawsuit special assessment, because the lawsuits against the state affect every single county, and they're more than willing to pay their fair share, which is they pay most of it.
Yeah.
So,
We-
that was interesting. To them, that was a direct
Yeah.
conflict. Probably one of the biggest lawsuits that is still ongoing is getting a fairer reimbursement from the state for public defense. And I don't necessarily say that because Ian's in the room, but it is that we are just above Mississippi in the percentage of public defense that is reimbursed by the state. And that's not very much. That's not a very good measure. So legislature seems just happy with that, and it's been tough to get them to understand.
I hope there's nowhere in the audience from Mississippi.
They would probably, if they're here, they would probably agree. Otherwise, they'd still be living in Mississippi, right?
So anyhow, I just thought I'd throw that out, something for us to chew on, nothing to decide. But it's got some fundamentals in there that are worth thinking about.
You know, to be totally transparent, why WASAC cares is because the big counties fund a lot of what they do. And they depend
Oh,
on,
yeah.
on that money. And that's no different than the industry I came from. But we had some large credit unions that then they have to decide, well, do we fund some lobby efforts on our own for our interests while we still try to help some of the others? And some of them did that. And I think that's probably how it will end up shaking out. King and Pearson, those might want to.
You're driving me to the other unrealistic expectation I have, which is to understand that fundamentally government is the fact that you think you need a lobbyist in there is already a failure. And so we're just doing Band-Aids above everything else.
That I'm not disagreeing with you there. I'm just telling you
Yeah.
the reality is what they do.
Thank you. I appreciate the discussion.
The Public Services Department wanted to remind us that there is also Washington State Association of County Engineers.
Oh,
Another one of those agencies.
another one of those agencies, yeah. So any other miscellaneous? Jessica, what I have a note here is like 10 minutes for each. 10 minutes for performance of an employee and 10 minutes for contract negotiations. Okay, so we will adjourn to executive session and take care of them. Okay, we're back from executive session. No decisions were made. Jessica, I'll turn it over to you.
Jessica Warren, Human Resources again. I have a request from Building and Planning to move their planning manager to step 4 effective 12/1/2024, and then to also keep his current step date at 6/1/2024.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve that request.
Have a motion to approve that request. Any questions? See none, I call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Also vote aye. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
Any other miscellaneous for the 10 o'clock meeting? See none, we will adjourn this meeting.